Correctly, Shigemetsu. How an ancient rhythm helps busy people enjoying God. And Jack asked me to do this week, and it's about family. And I thought, whoa, that's a difficult subject, family. So I grabbed the nettle anyway, let's go for it. Now, I guess everybody in this room's got some personal experience of family. Either you're in a family now, or you're brought up in a family. I don't think there's anybody here that hasn't had some kind of family experience. Some of it's very positive. I'm sure some people have had a wonderful, swimmingly wonderful family experience. Everything went right, the kids were wonderful, parents were so loving, parents always got on, never argued. I'm sure that's true for some people. But also some people have very negative experiences of family life. We've all had the bad times with family. But parents not really interested in their children, too busy, siblings always fighting. You know, my brother and I, we were always fighting. We never stopped. He was 3 years younger than me, but bigger than me. So he always tried to impose his sort of size on me. And one day my mum came along and had to separate us because I'm sure I would have killed him. That's what it is, isn't it? That's family life. It can be like that. And of course, some people have a very, very negative experience of family life. And it's not the place to say too much about that here, because if you've experienced that, you really need to seek the Lord in prayer about that, because I haven't got any easy answers to that. If you've had a really bad, abusive family life, then I just say, please seek prayer about it if you haven't already done so. And remember that whatever you've been through, Jesus was always there with you. Right? There's no pat answers, but I know that's a fact. He feels every single bit of pain that you felt. I guess most of us are somewhere in the middle, good and bad. Now, Ken, in his book, he gives us some helpful insights on how to improve family life. And some of these things are really good. First of all, we have to bear in mind that why are we in the family? God has chosen us to be a parent because nobody is in a better position to look after our children. And with husbands and wives, God has chosen husbands to be with their wives and wives to be with their husbands, because there's nobody better to be a husband to their wife. And there's nobody better to be a wife to their husband. It's no good looking outside the relationship for somebody better. Because sometimes you get in marriages, people will seek consolation from friends outside. And I can understand that. But God said, especially in marriages, God put the marriage together. It's a holy relationship. Even in the wedding declaration, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. Now, I've been divorced, so I know the reality sometimes this doesn't always work. But it's a holy relationship and something that we have to bear that in mind when we're thinking about relationships in family. The second thing is set your priorities right. You may have come across this example before. I haven't actually got one with me, but if you can imagine sort of having a glass bottle and somebody asks you, you put some rocks in the glass bottle and you fill it up with these big rocks. And then you put some, and somebody asks you, is it full up? And you say, no, because there's still space in the bottle. So you can pour in some gravel on top of that, and it still fills it up quite a well, but you still see there's some little spaces there. And then you fill it up with sand after that, and that fills up most of the rest of the space. And then you pour water in on top, and that completely fills the thing. That's the right order of priorities in your life. The important, the big things first. If you try and reverse the process, you put the water in first, you find there's no room for anything else. You won't be able to fit the big rocks in. You won't be able to put the important things in first. The priorities is work out what's the important things in relationship. Set your priorities right. Ken talks about the need for family time, the time to grow and bond together. And he gives some helpful ideas about how you achieve this. There's some we probably know some of this. Sunday should be a time of worshiping and resting together. Children should, hopefully, attend Sunday school and Christian youth groups. That's a way of bonding together. Try praying together. I didn't do that much in my marriage with my family. I regret it now. But get into a daily rhythm of praying with your family. And not just for your individual needs, but praying outside the family for needs abroad. Have a sort of an awareness of what's going on around the world in Ukraine and places like that, or famines in Africa. If you're praying as a family about these things, you'll bond better. Also, you can work together. You can have your children helping with the refreshment team, the welcome team maybe, the communion team, just maybe in a small way, but just something helping. Certainly at home, kids can help, cleaning up, tidying up, but do it as a joint exercise. Don't just tell them to go and tidy up. Do it with them. Outside of the home, you can help in the community together. You can go around when it's snowing, you can offer to help clear somebody's path of snow, for instance, or help with the gardening, some elderly person, but do it as a joint exercise with your family. It all helps the bonding of the family together. I know kids aren't always very cooperative with this kind of thing, so I'm a realist, all right? But it's worth trying some of this stuff. I like this one. Lay a hand on your child before they go to school. Do we ever do that? Is it worth doing that? I think it's very worthwhile, just laying your hand in prayer on your child before they go and bless them. How about studying the Bible together? Get the kids' Bible out and have a look at it together. It's going to help. This is a good one. Child sponsorship. Does anybody do child sponsorship here? Well done. Right? I used to do it years ago. Perhaps I ought to do it again. But what a wonderful thing it is to do with your family. Not just as an individual, but get your family involved. So that when the letter comes back from the child, you all read it together and you all get excited together. It's amazing. It's fantastic. You see, it can be fun. Because Jesus has got a great sense of humor. He loves fun. And he wants us to enjoy fun. But I'm a realist, as I said. I know these things don't always happen. And there are problem areas, and you have to look out for them. Has anybody been on a bus and noticed all the people on their phones chatting to each other? And they got their kids by the side of them. And they're on their phone. So I saw it's so regular. You see the kids and they got their little iPhone and they're playing games, and their parents are on their phone chatting to their mates, and nobody's taking any blind bit of notice of what the other one's doing. To me, it's crazy. Too much work away from home. I know that some people have to work hard to earn a crust. And I know it's not always possible to be there all the time. But we can overwork sometimes just to get that little extra thing that we need, that bigger TV that maybe you don't need. That second car you maybe don't need. That fourth holiday away you don't need. And you're working away, and because you're working away, you're not seeing your children, you're not seeing your spouse. How about this one? Too much housework. Do we sometimes put our housework above our family? I knew somebody once, um, sadly passed away now, but was absolutely scrupulously clean about everything in the house. Everything had to have a position in the house. It was so difficult to live there. You couldn't do anything without she coming behind you and cleaning up after you. It was just ridiculous. I also lived in a shared house once where the landlord was just the same. He used to tell me off for the simplest, tiniest little thing. It just makes life unbearable, and you don't get that family cohesion. What about blokes who go off and watch football all the time? Or women down the bingo 5 days a week? Or you go out to the pub? Or you disappear down into the shed at the bottom of the garden for weeks on end, just to get away from the kids, right? It's all about moderation. There's nothing wrong in going down to the shed and enjoying a bit of me time down there. But when you disappear for hours and hours on end and your kids wonder where you are, and your spouse knows where you are, but just getting so frustrated because she's having to deal with all the kids, it's not good. There are problem areas in this, and we have to watch out for them. This is an interesting one. When I come up in the morning here, I see the kids playing football on the local field, youth football on a Sunday morning. And that's a difficult one. I haven't really got an answer to this one, but there's a lot of peer pressure from teenagers to go and play football with their mates on a Sunday morning rather than go to church. If you've got an answer to this one, I'd like to know what it is, but it's something to bear in mind anyway. Maybe you need to take one Sunday off sometimes to go and watch them play football. Am I saying something totally wrong here? You know, maybe just give your kids priority sometimes. And this is a big one. Too much Christian work. Right? We can get so involved with church, we neglect our family. And you usually find it's usual a small number of people doing all the work. I'm not going to criticize or anything. I just want to say that's the reality of Christian church work. Is we have to be careful with this. We have to sort of work out some kind of balance in this. I made this big mistake once. When I first became a Christian, when I was a Christian and I married, I was too involved with church. And I neglected my spouse. It wasn't good. And I paid the price for that. You read in Deuteronomy, God's quite clear about this. He says, if a man is recently married, he must not be sent to war, or have any other duty laid on him. For 1 year, he is free to stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he has married. I disobeyed that, and I paid a price for that. And I really regret, and I am sincerely sorry for putting church before family and putting church before my wife. Don't make the same mistake as me. Do church work, but make sure you're not neglecting other things as well. Now, there are other family structures around. People think if you go into a monastery, all your problems are sorted. No family there. Well, anybody who tells you who's worked in a monastery will tell you that there's just as much tension in a monastery as there is in the outside world, because it's a big family and they all have to rub along together, and they don't always rub along well together. So it's not always heavenly bliss in a monastery. And of course, we've got our church, our Christian family. See, some people no longer in biological families, and God said he puts the lonely in families. Well, he puts the lonely in churches, because we're a big family here. It's the family of God. So we're talking about biological families, but we're also talking about church families. And we can share things, we can do things together like the normal family, We have life groups and prayer groups and meetings and conferences and all sorts of things we can all participate together. And bear in mind there can be tensions and problems in them as well. It's not all sort of sweetness and light in the meetings that we have. But God's put us all together. See, with the best of intentions, we don't always get it right. So you start to ask yourself a question: what's the purpose of families in the first place? Why did God create families? Why didn't he just make us purpose and beam us up? Right? Why did he do it? Well, here's the thought. What if God designed families to make us holy rather than happy? We often think of families as being the place to be made happy. But really, families are a crucible to refine our character. God's very clever, you know. He puts us into positions which changes us. Our family, that's our biological families, our church families, they got a front seat to what we're really like. We can't hide anything from people. I remember, you know, my family at home, you couldn't hide anything from them. They knew if I was obnoxious, etc. Because God wants us to get together. He's a relational God, and he wants us to get this right. He wants us to be in his family, which we are, and our earthly families are a bit of a trial run on this. Because it helps us to grow up and be like Jesus. We're all in the process in this room of growing up. Like we grow up in our biological families, we're growing up and we're learning things and we're getting more mature. That's the whole point of family, is to grow up. You get the rough and tumble of family life, and you get the opportunities in family life to acquire the character of God, which is what Jesus displays. Could we have our scripture reading, please? That's it. You see, the fruit of the Spirit, which is in Galatians, is love, joy, peace, patience, or long-suffering, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faith, gentleness, self-control. If you notice something, we only get these things by being with people. We can't be good to nobody. We can't be at peace with nobody. It doesn't work. We can't love nothing. We've got to love something or someone. Patience. We've got to be patient with somebody. We're not locked in a room on our own. And it's our choice, though. It's what notice we do of it. I like concrete examples. My dad. I don't know if I've mentioned about my dad before. My dad was a very proud man. Ex-army. Very, what should I say, independent thinking. Terrible to be as a father sometimes, because he wouldn't have to tell you off, he just looked at you, and that was the end of that. Right? And then he had a stroke, and the poor man just shriveled down. And I don't know if anybody here's had anybody who's had a severe stroke. It changes them totally. It wipes their personality away so much. It's cruel. It's absolutely cruel. And when he had his stroke, my mother died shortly afterwards because it was so hard work looking after him. And being the oldest sibling, of course, yours truly gets to look after him, right? Because there's no way he wants to go into a home. And all the rest of my siblings all had reasons, good or bad, for not helping me. So single-handedly, pretty well, I had to look after my dad. And I held down a full-time job at the same time. And my full-time job involved giving advice to homeless people and doing all sorts of interviewing, the difficult interviews, shall we say. So I was stuck between doing this job and then coming home and sorting my dad out. Of course, he'd been home all day. He was frustrated, upset, angry. He was in this situation. This is where you learn patience. You don't learn patience from a book. You learn patience because you're with somebody who makes you have to have patience with them. So for the umpteenth time, you have to go up and down the steps to sort out this problem. Self-control. You have to hold back what you want to say. You know, you might feel like exploding sometimes. You know, he used to have he's sadly deceased now a long time ago, so I can say a few things about him. But he had this annoying habit of ringing for a taxi and then getting me to ring the taxi 5 minutes before they were due to check they were coming. That can be so annoying. You ring the taxi firm up and you say, "Are you coming?" They said, "Yeah, of course we are. We're not due for 5 minutes." Little things like that can really niggle you. See, God's patient. He's very patient with us. Think what he could do with us, but he doesn't. He's so patient. You know, when we like everything to be sorted out, he doesn't want anybody to perish. He wants everybody the opportunity to come to salvation. Sometimes we want God to wrap it all up. I've spoken to friends saying, "Why didn't Jesus come tomorrow? You know, we're in such a mess. Why didn't he come tomorrow?" He's patient with us because he knows there's so many people out there that still need him. So he's patient. Gentleness. I used to push his wheelchair around, my dad's wheelchair. And you learn to be gentle doing that. Because they feel every jar. You go down off the pavement and it's jarring. And so you learn to be patient and gentle with them. Jesus was wonderfully gentle with people. The way he spoke to women particularly was so gentle. The lady who was being stoned, he was gentle with her and told her, you know, you're forgiven. Every opportunity he had, he was gentle with people, and that's what we should be. It's an opportunity to be gentle. I got two brothers, and when I had a hip operation, my two sons, sorry. One was a care worker, and he used to push the wheelchair I was in around, and he was so good at it, so gentle, because he learned how to do it. He was gentle. So when we used to get sort of off the pavement onto the road, it was fine. It was lovely because he knew how to do it. My other son, whoa, he came off the thing now and again because he didn't know. He wasn't gentle. He didn't know how to do it. He didn't learn that. Be at peace with everybody. It's hard because some people really get on your nerves, don't they? But be at peace. Bite your lips sometimes. Be the peaceful person in your family. Be the joyful person in your family. Jesus is full of joy. He's the Prince of Peace, and he's full of joy, and he wants to give you the joy that he's got in his heart. And lastly, God is love. We're to display love to everyone around us. And it's hard work sometimes because some people are very unlovely and unlovable. But Jesus knew that. He knows people around him were unlovable. But he still loved them. He loved them before they knew him. He loved us before we knew him. Because the greatest demonstration of his love was what he did, what we can't do. He said, stand back, this is my job. But even that he shares with us because he says, come with me on the cross. You won't have to endure the pain, but you're with me. And I'll take you through there. He endured the cross for us. What love that is. We should never get over this. We should never not feel emotional about his love for us on the cross. I think I've said all I can, to be honest. Just reflect on the cross for a little while when I leave the podium. What that cross means to you and what love really is from Jesus. And let's do what we can to display love to people around us. We've got a quiet area for prayer if anybody wants to pray afterwards with anybody. Don't neglect that opportunity if you feel you need prayer, particularly about some of the issues said today. Anyway, God bless you all.